Osiris.
Welcome to the Saint Disruption Podcast, where brilliant musicians, poets, and visionaries come together to share their creative collaborations and explore what it means to be human in these times. Episode 1. John Medeski talks about mentorship with Oteil Burbridge and Jeff Sipe. Each guest shares personal stories about their interactions with Col Bruce Hampton that helped shape their early careers, their ensuing views on music, and values in life, which in turn helped shape their mentorship skills.
Hi, I'm John Medeski, and I'm here with my dear brothers and friends, Oteil and Jeff Sipe, great musicians who played together for many years. I think when I first met you guys, we were playing together.
Yeah. What year was that?
Probably 93, something like that.
I think it was 93.
It was in Knoxville, Tennessee, the first time I remember seeing you guys. Yeah. And I was just like, oh, man.
Because Chuck Burnley was talking about this great group coming down to Knoxville. And we were like, who is it? Medeski, what do they do?
And then that night that we saw you, I was like, oh, man, this is it. Yeah, that was a...
Yeah, you guys were great at conjuring up just the roots into the modern age. You know, it was just wonderful to hear all that organic stuff and the interplay. What really blew my mind was your ability to communicate to each other without saying a word. For example, you'd open your eyes and close your eyes, and that was a cue.
Yeah, that was one of our...
Do you remember that?
Yeah, that was one of our cues. Well, the guitar player Bob Margolin played with Howlin' Wolf for years, and
he said
he once said to me, well, ESP was part of the tradition.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about how, there's the whole 12-bar thing was, not really a thing at first.
Yeah.
I was like, ESP was just part of the tradition. I remember that.
I love that, man. Remember that cat, Homesick James, that Col Bruce loved so much?
No.
He took me to El Diablo. Homesick James, this old blues dude. And went to see him. He was not following anything close to a 12-bar, but I had been playing with the Colonel for a while at that time, and I knew to just change when he changes, and you can kind of feel it coming. The bass player was so frustrated, and he was having the worst time, and I could tell when Homesick was going to change, and I really wish I had gone up to him and said, hey man, you're clearly having a miserable time. Let me do this gig because I love this kind of thing, and you can keep all the money. Because Col Bruce had showed me how to do that. When we were sitting there watching it, we were just laughing at how frustrated the other guy was getting. I was like, he doesn't realize what a gift this is,
Or that's the real. That's how it really is.
That's how it. Yeah.
And I think that you follow the lead, whatever that is, the melody, the lyric.
You just gotta merge with it, and then when you do, it's that was the thing with Col Bruce, right? I was it used to blow my mind. I was this guy can't really play what you say with chops, but yet he can do stuff that I can't do, and all the time. He'd be like, watch this.
No, that's just it. That's just it. You wouldn't know when it would happen, but all of a sudden it would just be the first time we played with him. It was with Medeski Minor Wood. It was a Chuck Burnley gig, and I don't remember the place. It was a little tiny, kind of railroad club bar thing or restaurant. I don't even know. But he was he said he's going to have this guy play with us, and I didn't know who he was at all. We lived in New York. It was a whole different scene. I didn't know. I had no idea. And I remember we just being a little skeptical.
When he walks up, you're like, this guy?
But meeting him, and loving him, meeting him, but still not sure. And then we played one of our more complicated, we just did our set, and he was sitting in, and it was sort of this tune that's kind of complicated, and it had a lot of different sections, and all of a sudden it just goes into this straight ahead, really fast swing thing. And he, just, because he had that psychic, he had that ESP thing. He just went into this throat singing, right in this part. It was so perfect. I remember we all just looked at each other, just started laughing. And it was just okay, this guy is it. For me, I'd rather wait around to get those kind of moments in a musical gig. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but different people want different things from music.
Yes.
But there's something cathartic when it's that real magic is it's It's worth it for me, all the other, to sit through all the other, the waiting around, the setting it up,
Yes.
I mean, I don't want to wait 10 gigs to see a band 11 times and wait 10 gigs to see it. But at least in a night, it's like if you got to wait a little while for it to get there and for it to happen,
But that's kind of like that is really like the Grateful Dead thing. Like they're okay to wait around for 10 nights.
I know.
You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's cool because they're like, man, I was there last time it happened, and I'll wait because it's the same thing with us. Like, from that last time, it's like, it's cool, we're good. Like, and then when it happens, you're like, this is why we do it.
Yeah.
Just drink it in. Water's pouring, guys.
Yeah, it's a big release.
Oh, man, I love that. I love it. Me, I met Colonel Bruce when I was 24, I think. And
I remember the night.
he convinced me, and it's hard for me to tell young people this, but he told me, he said, your concept of yourself is like this. And what you really are is like limitless. And you have to break out of these confines that you put yourself in. And I was like, well, I don't know how to do that. And he's like, well, I do. I can do it for you. But it was the kind of thing I had to give him permission to do, and I was like, have at it. And he just did one thing after another, pulled out one brick, like this whole side fell off from that one. And all of a sudden, before I knew it, like it was all gone. Now what I am is still in there, but he really deconstructed a lot of shit.
Okay, because you are a ridiculous bass player. You have ridiculous chops, ridiculous ears. You could kind of do anything. What is it that made you willing to let this guy... I mean, what were you looking for? I mean, I understand, but I mean, why?
Here's the thing.
Why would
it
you?
looks like that.
Most people wouldn't do that. No, most people would
You're right.
Somebody comes to them with that kind of truth, and they're like, no, their ego, whatever.
Oh, absolutely.
How did you? Why? How? What?
It's mystical. Like, part of it was that on that night, he guessed my birthday within 3 minutes of my
Before I
birthday.
get your name, I said, Bruce, I want you to meet O. And he said, August 24th.
At 2 a.m, I was born at 1:57, right? So I was like, so right away he just took the whole chair and just went wham.
Yeah.
He got mine too.
Yeah, and so I was like, all right, you got my attention. Now I hadn't heard him play yet. And then when I heard him play, I was like, I have no idea what's going on. But you got within 3 minutes of my birthday, so there was a long benefit of the doubt. And also, I was super frustrated with music. I went into it pure, and then the music business just like bam. So I was so unhappy, and I was like, God, I don't even know if I made the right choice to play music. And I had put all my eggs in that basket. So I was really super frustrated. All my talents weren't helping me like get a house or a car or anything. Like, I was damn near starving.
Yeah.
And he said, well, you won't make any money with me, but I can bring the fun back, essentially. That's what he said. Mm-hmm. So I was like, all right, let's do it. So we start playing, and I'm just like, long benefit of the doubt, and then crazy shit would just happen. And I was like, okay, this is crazy. And he's psychic. I saw him just like, I was just kind of entranced by the whole thing. And I knew he was right. I knew he was right.
How did you know? That's what I'm saying. Because my experience is most musicians don't know.
It was intuitive.
They get into it. Why did you want that?
Half and half, because I was miserable and because I suspected he was right. It really was intuitive. I was like, I think this guy is onto something. And so let's see, because you're not happy where you're at now. And when I look back on it, like I was going to be like a fusion musician. That's how I saw myself.
Yeah.
As like a fusion musician. And then a lot of stuff that was in my blind spots, he helped me see. Like the first night that I really got Howlin' Wolf it took my head off. It took my head off. And I remember listening to Wolf, Jack of Diamonds by John Lee Hooker, Charlie Christian, and Bluegrass. And I was in like Athens, Georgia all the time, in Atlanta, and just so the Southern thing and all these roots stuff. And I got into really old gospel stuff. I remember ghosts flying around. We'd be playing duo or listening to some old gospel or Howlin' Wolf, and I felt like ghosts of the South were just flying around. And so it's just the magic. I was just like, yeah, I'm in all the way. Fucking let's do this. And then he took me to meet Sun Ra. And it was over. It was all the way over. Like, he showed me all these things that I hadn't really got before. And then it just kind of happened. And then all of a sudden we were in outer space and we were in the unknown, and I understood it philosophically and musically. I had a context for it because of him. And all that's a lot to try to show a young person. Like, I wished I could have them go play with him rather than me trying to explain it to a younger person. But
you kind of have to be ready for them, because as many people went through the Bruce Hampton camp that didn't get it, wouldn't get it.
That's
and
true.
It was like, this is not for me. They moved on. But the people who really kind of stuck around, I think, ended up getting a piece of themselves they didn't have before.
That's what my question is. Like, why did you want that piece? I mean, with all the other options out there, with all the other reasons people are making music. I mean, right? Music serves a lot of functions.
He wasn't playing music, though. It was like performance art, and it was sonic expression, backing up, certain, man, he had so much energy. When I first met him, it was like laser beams were shooting out of his eyes, He would just come into the room, and it was the Bruce show. He had so much adrenaline. And it was contagious. Yeah. And when he started laughing and pointing out the absurd. Yeah. I started saying, that's right. That is crazy. Why didn't I see that?
They say I'm crazy. Like, this stuff is crazy. Right. The way we confine ourselves is crazy. Like, agreeing to this whole construct and how limited it is crazy. Mm-hmm. Once you...
And so that... He opened the box, the Freedom Box, and it was like, wow, all this stuff's flying out of it. It was like, love it. He was an unlikely mentor. Mm-hmm. He was, I met him, it's a short story. Dan Wall, great keyboard player, asked me, said, would you play a wedding? I need you to play a wedding with Bruce. And it was... in North Georgia. And so I set up, I was there early, and Dan Wall's great keyboard player.
How old were you?
25.
Yeah.
And Bob Lee on bass. And then Bruce comes in last, and he's got a young guy setting up his equipment, and was like, hello. And that was it, until the downbeat. So we started playing smooth jazz, and it's appropriate, and there's dancing going on, and there's the wedding cake over there, and everybody's dressed up, and it's smooth and appropriate. It's like, this is what we're here for, And then Dan Wall looks over at Bruce and gives him the nod, take a solo. Bruce turns all the way up, starts playing random notes with such energy. I'd never heard anything like it in my life. And I thought, my first reaction was like, this is wrong. This is so inappropriate. How dare he just destroy this wedding like this? And I look over at Dan Wall, and he's laughing his ass off. And he's trying to find out how he can bring Bruce in.
Yeah, he can voice it so Bruce is
right. And I looked over at Bruce, and his eyes are closed, and he's like just going for it. And Dan Wall's laughing and trying to bring him in. I realized these guys have a very special relationship. And the very next day, Bruce calls, come to sit in at the Harvest Moon. And so I go there, and there's Joe Zambi, and then there's the flautist for the symphony, and there's like almost 15 people on stage. Bill Hatcher, Randy Honey.
Dude, Hatcher.
Third improv into it, I look over at Randy, who's right next to me, and I said, I think I found my calling. Yeah. And he said, I think you have too. That was so much fun, so much freedom. I was working 8 gigs a week, making good money. I had a great life as a young man in Atlanta. And then I just did the Bruce and cut everything else out. And it was like a vow of poverty just to go and be in that energy and learn. And then Teal and Kofi came, and Jimmy, and
So how many years before Oteil came into there were you doing it?
83 I moved to Atlanta, 84 I met him, and then 86 or 7 I met Jimmy, and then you guys came to town just after that.
Yeah.
We played in a top 40 band, and then I was like, I'm out of here, I can't do it.
Yeah.
And just went with Bruce. I remember you coming into a rehearsal, we had a side band. We were playing in the garage, and he said, he put your bass down, he's like, oh man, I'm not digging what I'm doing, this top 40 scene. I said, why don't you come out and sit in with Bruce and we just have fun, we do what we want. And that was the night he met.
Yeah. And all these guys played with like Paul Barrere from Little Feat and the musical director from Earth, Wind and Fire and the drummer for Diana Ross and Bette Midler and all that. Like all the top studio cats in town would go play with him and get their yayas out, And so
Get the medicine.
And that's when you said music serves a lot of purposes. For me, it's medicinal. It's like therapy on the couch. It's my psychedelic therapy. It's my Robitussin, like all my stuff. And it makes it, I don't want to say I'm critical of music, because I don't like musical snobbery. Like I love what Ornette says about I want to remove the caste system of sound, but I'm very hard, and I have to be aware of this when I'm thinking about mentoring young kids that they might not be there yet, that for me it's purely going to the doctor. So if it's entertainment, I'm walking. If it's, and that's fine. Music is fine for entertainment and whatever purpose you need it for. But what I need it for is the cure. I need that medicine.
Or do you guys remember when you were kids? What music, how old were you when you started, and what did music do for you then?
Well, my mom put headphones on her stomach when she was pregnant. So my parents are from the Bronx, born in 31 and 36. So my dad saw everything birth, like bebop, get birth, like he was at ground zero for all of it. And I started playing drums at 5, so I realized how difficult the music was that he was into. Yeah. So I never rejected my parents' music, And so I don't remember when, because it happened before I actually had ears, But I came out to the sound of Elvin and Train and Miles and all these things, and that's my imprint on, it always, not that my dad passed away, if Sketches of Spain comes on, now I know what it really means, because it shoots me back to earliest memories. And that, I didn't realize how medicinal it was then. It was just oh, this is what my house sounds like, And then later, as becoming a teenager, when the world just fucking started.
Yeah, that's an era I'm thinking of.
That's when I began to need it. That's when it was my food and water and my way through this craziness. I was like, well, I can hold on to this through all this crap. Just hold on to this rope and keep going wherever it pulls you.
The rope of the truth.
Yeah,
for you anyway.
I guess that's when it became sacred.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about for you? What was your early?
I started playing when I was really, really little. When I was a kid, I played anything. If somebody said, do you want to do this? I would say yes. And then I'd go figure out how to do it. I had a teacher that told me to do that. I had a really great teacher. When I was 11, she was a great jazz teacher, Lee Shaw, amazing mind, amazing spirit. And that was her thing. She's like, if somebody calls you to do a gig, whatever it is, just say yes, and then go figure out how to do it and take the gig. So I took that a little to an extreme, and I would literally play whatever it is, accompanying classical stuff, big bands. I danced music at country clubs, solo background music, whatever, all kinds of stuff. My dad used to get people like, you'd play for a goat screwing if they called me. And I was like, yes, I would.
You told me.
Yes,
I would.
They call.
But what I realized is that when I started improvising and composing in the moment like that, what it did for me is what I want to share. Yeah. And if everybody doesn't get it, it's not for everybody. Some people want music to be nostalgic. They want to take it back. Some people just want to be entertained. And I'm not I don't really feel music has to be you know,
There's 100 layers there.
it could be whatever.
Yes,
But I'm saying, why? What's wrong with me? Why? You know, I could have made so many different career choices, and then I realized, you know, no, it's because I really want to share what did it for me. Whatever's going on in my life, whatever like weird stuff you go through, emotional, hormonal, agony, growth, traumas, whatever it is, being able to just sit and play music, whether it was by myself or with other people, it just like it. I don't know, man. It's medicine. For me, it's not like what this kind of music is healing music.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just music.
Yeah.
You know,
you could be with children, and it just gets this thing, and you're like, there it is. I've done it with Nigel before. Just both of us playing the same drum kit, and I would improvise a thing, and he would copy it, and then we would do this call and response thing, and he would match it in time, and I was like, you understand. All right, we don't need even, like, we just had that thing, and he was friggin' 6 or 7. I was like, oh.
That's the Suzuki method, kind of. Talk about the rules before you. Just like language, you learn to speak before you understand.
Yeah.
Victor
Wooten always says that. He goes, you don't learn to read before you learn to speak. I was like, that's true.
No, it's really true.
And you don't practice speaking. You just keep speaking and get better at it.
Yeah. What about you?
Oh, for me, I was born in Berlin, Germany, but I was raised in Southeast Asia, in Saigon and Bangkok, Thailand. And one of the earliest memories was in Vietnam, but in Bangkok, Thailand, going to the Buddhist temples, the Temple of the Bells, and just ringing the bells, going around. And there was, you could do it. You were encouraged to do it. You weren't like, don't touch that. And that was beautiful sounds. And then my dad got like a Farfisa organ, and so I would be like 6 or 7, and I started plunking out some melodies, and I found Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and I figured it out. And after I did that, I was like, that's really cool. It's like, wow. It was an awakening experience. Yeah. And my mom and dad always talked about how they would find me in front of the speaker, just moving around, to the radio. So they recognized that I had a thing with it. But it was 11 years old. I was invited into the school band. You could pick your own instruments, so I circled drums. And my dad said, what about clarinet or flute?
Yeah.
I was like, no, drums.
Quiet.
Yeah, and they were always really encouraging.
Yeah, that's great.
Really lucky, man, especially with drums, dude.
That's every parent's nightmare, although it's the best instrument to start on or to play.
You play drums, don't you?
I did. Yeah. I mean, I did. I just played percussion.
I know you played.
I played percussion in marching band and all that stuff in high school. And I always had drums in my house.
It seems to me, from a drummer's perspective, my favorite bass players are all drummers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my favorite keyboard players are drummers too.
Right.
Our favorite musicians could probably play the drums pretty good, I mean, it's important because rhythms, right? It's the first.
And it's a recognition of.
It starts with rhythms. Yeah.
How long to hang on a note. When to mute it. When to, how to treat the note length.
Yeah.
Drummers understand that, and I think musicians coming from drums understand.
Like, rhythm isn't just about playing a groove or in time. Rhythm is how you place things in space, and it's really important.
The nuance of rhythm is something that's missed a lot. That and the art of rhythm guitar playing, man. There's this guy in Birmingham, Alabama, named Glenn Butts, and you could go see him play just a duo with him and a singer, and the way he backed up singers just by himself was so orchestral, but also rhythmically rich. He was a white cat, but he really, when you're in the South, he had just come up and really fell in love with and studied that old tradition of comping. And I hope it's not being lost. I don't know. On the jam band scene, it's not. They haven't gone that far back like Jerry did. Jerry was way into that stuff, So it's there. I hope they find it, But this guy, it's just a local dude in Birmingham, Alabama, that's like putting down this stuff that goes back a long way, man, and really doing it right, man. The Western tradition is not focused as much like on the nuance of rhythm, and a lot of that rhythm and a lot of that rhythm guitar stuff is about that. It's the rhythmic.
It's also a sensibility of supporting, being in a 100% support mode.
100%, yeah.
I mean, most guitar players are just waiting to solo.
It's true, but it's true.
I mean,
And you can tell because they're like play rhythm like almost as loud as they solo. Not, I'm like, hey man, tuck that thing, tuck it, like tuck the shirt in. You're hanging over the singer, and the singer's here, tuck it in. You know, like
Breathe like a horn player would.
yeah.
You know, like that's the blessing of a horn musician.
You have to
phrase.
You have to phrase.
I mean, I think that's why, like, you know, I know that's why I kind of make noises while I'm playing to force a breath. By vocalizing the line, I have to pause and breathe, you know? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Accompanying is an art, man, and it's like, it's a sensibility. It's like something you have to want to do that. The joy of actually supporting somebody in a way that can, you know, help them be the best that they can be, you know?
I remember magic when it happens, isn't it?
Oh. Yeah, you know, there's this record with Jimmy Smith. And he's taking a solo, and I'll never forget, I was listening to it, and for some reason, you know, you can listen to a record and listen to the same record and lock in on the drums, or just listen to one instrument at a time through the whole, and I was kind of focused on Kenny Burrell. And the way he backed up, the way he comped underneath Jimmy Smith's solo, just blew my mind. I was like, dude, that was as good as any solo you'll ever hear. But he was in total support mode, and it was so orchestral and just masterful. My mind was blown. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to play six string. I wanted to get more into chords and understand more of that, you know. Even though I have to stay in the role of the bass player, you know. And it just showed me, it's like, man, Kofi was like that, man.
Yeah,
he didn't have to be soloing. While you were soloing, he just was doing stuff underneath the soloist. And then they would realize once he's gone, you know, they would be like, oh my God, I've lost 4 people.
Yeah.
Kofi was a better drummer on flute than some drummers I know.
Yeah, dude.
And, you know.
He's kind of the only flute player.
He would just be so funky.
Oh, dude.
I mean, I was like, you're killing me just rhythmically, you know. Like, I always had Kofi, you know what I mean? And he taught me how to listen to music. Col Bruce added another way of how to listen to music that I was like, oh. And both of them did teach me like how to zoom out and listen to it as a whole. So then you go, oh, there's my piece. I'm that leg on the table. And then there's these 4 legs, and then there's the braces and the top. And so you could just see where you fit in the whole thing. Yeah. As opposed to like when you're microscoping, now the whole thing is everything you've been working on, and that's all you see. So when you get up, you just want to do that.
Well, when you're the only thing in your microscope.
Exactly. You're the only thing in your microscope, right? Exactly. But I got really lucky.
Well, that's mentorship. That's like the other theme here.
Regarding spoken word, improv, it's a wonderful mix. Really, really invites really careful listening and careful support. Creating those waves and riding the waves with the message and with the delivery of the poet. But Kevin Williams runs this thing in the park every Sunday, and I was invited to be part of that. There was the spoken word poetry and improv underneath it, and man, I had so much fun, and it was cool. There's a lot of freedom. There's a lot of expression and a lot of just in the now. It was wonderful.
Different rhythm than songs necessarily, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of like creating waves.
Yeah.
Of sound behind the words. It's not about a part. It's about like creating a sonic thing that goes like this.
It's like a soundtrack almost, right? It's like you're accompanying words in a different way. Like the words are not being confined to a certain form, you know, that a song has to, you know, or they're not being pulled into the
verse chorus thing.
Yeah, or the musical realm. The music becomes becomes a soundtrack for what's happening, which means it can go with it. It can pair against it. There's so many things you can do with working with the words. You know, I love it. I dabbled in it, but this has been sort of part of, like, you know, there was in New York. There was the New York Poets Cat. There's always there was some kind of scene going on around spoken word and live music, especially more jazz kind of stuff. That seems to be, which is one of the things I think is interesting about some of the stuff that we're doing with this project, is to sort of pair and not just creating a song, not just doing hip hop, which is awesome, which is one of the reasons we love hip hop, right? Because it's it's taking words and rhythm, and it just reinvented poetry and music. To also just deal with the poem for what it is, and put music against it that creates a backdrop or like a pairing almost.
It's like wine pairings.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to doing it, man. I have not done it a lot. I mean, actually, the most that I did it was with Colonel Bruce.
Well, he's great. We did a track. We did a track with Bruce. We worked with this guy Steve Cannon. Yeah, it's got Steve Cannon, and we used to work with this amazing. I don't even know if it's poetry. This woman Gloria Trop.
What is it?
She was like alien language.
Nice.
One of the most beautiful, wildest things. And I've also worked with this band called Auction out of Russia. Have you heard these guys? Auction. They incorporate a lot of stuff. They're very modern, rocky, and with everything pop rock, but also some kind of traditional Eastern European. They have a tuba player and stuff in there, and
I like it.
It's amazing. But I did a record with them, and I asked, so what do the lyrics mean? And they all just they just all kind of snickered, and because Leonid, the lead singer, he's created his own language, and he writes these.
It's not even Russian.
It has very Russian sounding roots. It's very.
And you thought it was just Russian.
There's poets, who in Russia have written poems like this. That it's like this sort of free language, but dabbing into the roots to get into some kind of subconscious stuff. Yeah, but you play a gig with him, and there's 2,000 people singing along with his song. Like whatever it is. Yeah, whatever it is they're not saying. They're saying
everybody's saying it. Yeah.
But you said you do have experience with that, because Bruce would go into these rants and we'd be.
Oh yeah, in the year of Oteil, when Crane became Grove and factories manicured stale salt legs, the utensil ocean prevailed. Then came the sixes and the sensitive film realized cabbage. He actually helped me get poetry. It was actually that
poem that did it?
Poem, if you want to call it that.
It is a poem.
It is, yeah. But I was like, it helped me get Dada's poetry. And that's where the name Aquarium Rescue Unit is like, some sliver of one of those
it's a line in a poem.
Things, and because he was changing the name of the band every week. And then we got a record deal somehow. Bruce, he can't keep changing the name. What's it going to be? He goes, Aquarium Rescue Unit, just like off the top of his head. All right, Aquarium Rescue Unit is, That helped me kind of understand, and then I connected that with the out musicians like Sun Ra, Cecil Taylor Ornette, James Bloodhomer, Albert Eiler. And then I'll never forget, I was hearing Sun Ra, and then it connected to like Pine Top Perkins, and I was like, oh. And I was like, oh man, it's not out, it's just old, and it's not confined to this thing. And then I just saw the connection between everything, and I was like, okay, I say, Bruce really, he did a number on me, man.
Yeah,
he was good, man.
Clearly.
He really.
So how do you make that? How do you do that number on the kids?
What I do is I tell them about Colonel. And I decided, I don't know why it took me so long to do this, but I said, we're just going to have our Colonel Bruce class. And we took In Memory of Elizabeth Reed, right? And we played it, just straight through to the solo section. And then I had everybody detune every other string. And then I said, just play it straight. And then we played it, and it just went, and everybody could not only hear it, but they could feel it. And I'm howling with laughter, just like Bruce, because when it gets released, you're like, oh, now we got action. And everyone could, and I stopped and I said, can you all feel that? And everybody's mind was blown. And I said, it's just the unknown. Like, you can literally step this far to the right or left or up or down of the known, and you're completely free. Mm-hmm. Right? And so I just started doing those things that Colonel did to me. He was like, play for me like before you ever the first time you picked up a bass. And I was like, dude, I've been spending my entire life trying to not sound like that.
Right.
Like, to the point where I'm 180 degrees from it and I don't even know how to do it. And I couldn't do it. And then I thought, what can I do to force me? And I was like, I got it. And I turned the bass this way. And then I looked and I had to look for, I'm on the third string. And, and he was like, that's it right there. And I was like, okay.
It's like when Miles told Blockwood, play like you've never played before on Bitches Brew. And it sounds like he never picked up a guitar before.
And that's my favorite. That's my favorite shit.
Yeah.
The whole singing with what I play, that was him. He had this thing where he would just go, Max Roach, and then you'd have to play like Max. And then he would call somebody up, the bass player, and I have to play like the bass player. And he said, George Benson. And I think Charlie Williams was playing with us, and he hesitated. I mean, it was supposed to be like that. Like, it was like Saturday Night Live. It was like performance art. And so I just jumped up to the mic and I started scatting with what I played. He always like forced me to do it and poked me with the drumstick, sing. I was like, I don't want to sing, you know? And then, but when you sing, you have to take a breath. And it changed my playing forever. And I wouldn't have done that if we hadn't been doing this musical skit.
Like, I never heard him really like diss specific music. You know, he would say, "I hate musicians."
Yeah,
I've never met a musician I like.
He would,
he would,
especially good ones.
He would just,
He would show you a room without describing it, Like we'd be riding around in the tour bus, and listening to the radio. You turn on the radio, it was liars, 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 pushing, like looking for a station. Finally, you find something. He's like, no, that's the truth. Yeah, that would be your.
You know what he told me? He goes, "You're not good enough to lie to me, so you should just tell the truth." Because he loved a good lie. Like, build me the Great Pyramid or the Sistine Chapel or put it up to the Tower of Babel and go to the moon.
Wrestling, right.
And I can appreciate that. Yeah.
yeah.
But he was like, you're not good enough to do that, so you should just take all your clothes off and tell me the truth. And it was humbling, like it really, it could have, I guess I had such a big ego that it could survive it. But it could have just crushed my ego, man. Or I would have just said, you're full of shit.
I guess I just think it's an amazing thing that you didn't, because most musicians with your talent, technique, skill, everything would tell somebody like Bruce to fuck off.
You can't even play. I know.
But
these great players wanted to play with him.
Yeah, but when you realize that he can play a one-note solo, that is better than anything.
Here's what I tell students now, and even older musicians that are still deceived by this. He would talk about transmitting. It wasn't about playing.
It was like channeling.
It was transmitting. So he wanted, and there's people that could transmit like just hugely that didn't have chops. And guys with so much chops that it was like the signal was so weak. And he was like, I'm trying to find your soul in there and I can't even hear you. I can't hear anything that's actually you.
Right. I hear your influences. But
yeah. And so then when I got Howlin' Wolf, and then when I got like all these people that didn't necessarily have chops, but would just take your head off.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, a lot of my favorites that did have tons of chops loved that stuff. Then we found out, Pharoah Sanders played with Bobby Blue Bland. Well, I didn't know that, and was it Herb Ellis? Who was it that played with T-Bone Walker? And you just find all these connections. I was watching an interview with George Coleman. He said, well, if I played with Muddy Waters, it would be like this. And I was like, oh, shit, he played with Muddy,
Yeah.
But they didn't have that whole,
hierarchy.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you play with a lot of younger musicians.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because I'm old.
That's rude. And they,
I showed
they're the
up
only
with
ones
my
that'll play.
trio.
They're the ones that'll play.
You know,
with
we're
me.
setting up, and somebody goes, "Are you their dad?" Yeah,
At least they didn't say granddad.
that's happened more than now. It's gonna, yeah. Right.
We're getting there.
No, it's a beautiful thing because we have the same spirit. I think all of our spirits are still 18. And you are.
Yeah.
I hear it in you. You know that young like yearning for
If
all
you
this
lose
magic.
that, you're screwed. Yeah.
Right. So I still think on one level, when we get together and we're playing, we're all listening and we're all doing that thing. It's an ageless experience. Playing with younger cats has given me a chance to see myself even more. Like, who am I as a leader? Who am I as a mentor?
Yeah.
And I hope I get this right. A couple of times I didn't. And I was told, you're not all that. And I had to look at myself and I was like, yeah, I could have done that better. I could have handled that better. It was a growing opportunity for me to learn how to lead in a way that's like Bruce would, showing you that possibility without telling you about it.
Yeah.
Or without judging if this is right or wrong or good or bad. It's like, check this out. And then you're like, oh, wow, okay.
It's a sacred thing to do. It really is. It's humbling because you're like, oh, we switched places. I'm not the young guy anymore. You know,
Right,
like
I used to be the youngest.
Yeah, we were always the young guys. You know? And now it's like, oh wow. But I love it. You know, that's why I love teaching up there at Full Moon, because I'm older than Colonel Bruce was when he got a hold of me by like over 10 years. Mm-hmm. You know, he was in his, 45? He was in his early...
I met him when he was 37.
Yeah, because he was early 40s.
He was never 37.
This is my wife, Rainbow. She was checking out some pictures, of an old Hampton grease man or something, and found an old picture of Bruce when he's healthy, young, handsome.
Yeah. Super handsome dude.
Right? Like a Marlon Brando.
Marlon Brando up and down.
And
dude.
she was like, oh, who's that? Oh my God, it's Bruce. And then she
saw
was like,
the
took it back. He's like, no.
No, he was a beautiful, beautiful man.
Yep.
Really, really, really a beautiful man.
The Saint Disruption Podcast. Recorded and mixed by Hamilton Media Design at Sidehouse Records. You can also find more creative collaborations on all our major streaming platforms. Visit our YouTube channel for more creative content and video episodes of our podcast.
Osiris.